Okay, so we are live here. So we're just making sure that we're all set up and good to go. Great, great. So yeah, our audio signals are working fine. Video is good. We're live. Everyone, can you see us? Can you hear us? If you're watching us, just put your comments in the chat. Okay. All right. So just gonna give it a minute, then we're gonna get started. Oh, we have Deepti watching us live. Great to see you here, Deepti. Welcome. All right. Okay, so I think we're good to go. All right. Hey, everyone. Sabrish Shant here, and welcome to another episode of the Six Figure Consultant Show. Every time I do this show, I get so excited because I get to showcase some of the finest talents from across the world, handpicked through my professional network and my connections from across the world. So I'm so excited for this special episode today. It's been a little over a month. We've had some issues, with our platform and so on. So we had to fix some of that, and we're here today live. And I'm excited today because it's one of my special episodes as well. And I'm bringing on somebody who I've known for quite some time, and I'm pretty close to as well. I've worked with that person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring her on, and I'm going to introduce you to her. So this is the Six Figure Consultant Show. And if you're watching for the first time, we do the show between, every month to about, month and a half. We bring on a special guest with us who's been a successful consultant, running a successful consulting practice across the world. And the intent for this show is to from time to time, because I've been consulting for a long time, I have felt that, maybe the consultants, are not being recognized as much as they need to be, right? So um, I had the, opportunity to start something a couple of years ago, and I decided to create a platform to not only recognize people who are successful in consulting practice, but also I want to, bring them on, share their journey, their stories, and their goals, their frustrations, all of that with you all as well. And I feel that they deserve to be honored and they deserve to be known for some of the great work they've done in the world. So, without further delay, in this special episode, I'm going to bring on one of the you know uh, awesome consultants I've worked with. I've known her for quite some time. She's got over 20 years of consulting experience. She's a specialist with with accurate focus in resolving IT and business problems. She's a strategic consultant. She's worked on several organizational, technical, and tactical initiatives, and she's been helping a lot of clients realize their return on investment on IT initiatives and setting them up for success as well. She's commonly known as the fixer, and she's made a career for herself, fixing IT initiatives that are, actually in problem, So she goes in and she fixes those IT initiatives, and she helps clients realize rate of return on investments on their IT initiatives. So without further delay, let me bring on Brandy today. Hey, Brandy.
Hey, Sabrish, how are you?
Good. How is it going?
Good. Thank you for the overwhelming welcome. The fixer, I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised to know that they call you the fixer, because I used to be known as the finisher at some point in time. So I was almost thinking to myself that we should probably rename the show to a fixer and the finisher show or something like that.
I
So
love it. I love it. Thank you for
yeah,
having me. This is awesome. A great introduction. I just want to say thanks to you. Like you have been so successful and doing such a great job. And look at this platform that we're on tonight. Super excited to be here. And I love that I see people's names here come up and some familiar names, which is fantastic. So thank you.
yes, yes. Awesome, awesome. So yeah, so quite the honor to have you here as well, Brandy. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna chat, right? So I've got some questions lined up for you, and I just wanted to talk more about your consulting practice and how you how are you successful. I know that you've been always in demand. You've got back to back clients lined up for you and so on. So just want to learn more about what you do and what your story is and so on, right? So how busy is it for you right now?
Things are busy. So no, life is good. Um, no shortage of work in terms of contracts. Being labeled as the fixer, I get a lot of taps on the shoulder going, hey, like we've got this issue. Can you come in? Having those conversations. I like to go in and fix. I get very bored if things go, should I say, smoothly, or like I love that change. So that keeps me super busy. And, as mentioned in our conversations as we were preparing for this, I'm just wrapping up my master's, my MBA. So I'm on my last 6 weeks writing my dissertation.
Okay.
So between that and home life and travel, life is good. No complaints.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So it's busy, and you've been busy fixing problems as well. So uh, just
Yes.
thinking about these kind of these problems that you fix, like how's the market right now, and do you think, I mean, do people have lots of problems these days?
With the market, there's always going to be issues. They can be technical, they can be on the people side, they can be on the process side. You always come across something.
Yeah.
It's very, an outlier that if something went really well without running into issues, I don't think you come across that very often.
Yes.
So yeah, things are busy. I would say the market, there's such a high demand right now for bringing in consultants, not even just to fix, but just to get the work done because there's so much work out there. The gates are flooded right now, which is great as a consultant. It's an opportunity that you can meet with different clients and see what they're doing. Different
Yeah.
industries is also very fascinating. So not bored, lots to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, awesome. And you work in different industries as well, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky. I have worked, I was an employee before I went to consulting. I
Okay.
worked in the finance industry and I actually worked in agriculture for like 10 years. And then
Nice.
with my clients, working through, governments and private, it's been great. If you want to learn and try something new, it's a great fit because
Okay.
there's always something new to learn.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. Yeah, so I've worked in finance, I've worked in agriculture a bit as well, and I've got maybe a dozen of industry experience as well over the last few years. And I think that's one of the that's one of the fascinating aspects of being a consultant, because you work in diverse environments. There's a lot of variety in terms of
Mhm.
problems and just people you work with. So yeah, so that's awesome. So 20 years is a long, long time, Brandy. And
Especially when
I,
I'm 29. Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, 20,
So,
20 over 20 years in IT.
mhm.
Part of that was being an employee, and then I made that decision to go into consulting about, I want to say it's 12 or 13 years ago already.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, because I started as an employee as well back in the days, and about 22 years ago, I decided to move into consulting, and I've met with several other consultants, and what I see is a trend where people always start as a full-time
Hmm.
employee at some point in their careers, and then they eventually get into consulting. And not many people stay in consulting for a long time, right? So I'm really fascinated looking at people who've been there for 20 plus years in this practice. So how did it start for you, Brandy? How did you make that switch?
How did I make the switch? I had friends and colleagues who were consulting. I was an employee at that time, and they kind of planted the seed. And they're like, "Oh, have you ever thought about consulting?" And the whole. And I'm not going to downplay it, but oh, you can set your hours and you can pick your clients and so forth, which is great to an extent. But for me, employee was I was very secure, right? And some people strive to have that 25 years of service. It wasn't
Yes.
me. I need change. I need to try new things, meeting new people.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me in terms of my personality that I needed to go out and get more. And so I
Okay.
took the leap. Of course, there was risk, but I took it calculated. I didn't jump into it and quit my job one day and jump into the consulting world. And I did a lot of homework and networking to get myself set up before I made that decision, because it is a big decision to make.
Right.
You got to plan carefully.
Right. And did you have to prepare yourself to make the switch, like mentally, physically? What kind of preparations did you make?
It's funny you asked that, Sabrish. So I remember the day when I gave my notice, and I'm like, okay, like I'm doing this. I have my contract secured, and it was for 1 year.
Yeah.
And I came home, and I'm like, I don't work for anybody. I don't have any more benefits. I don't have any more pension, and I'm starting this 1 year contract. What am I going to do afterwards? So my only advice is like just focus on the first 30 to 60 days. Don't think about what's going to happen in a year, because things change all the time.
Yeah.
And the best advice to get my head wrapped around that was you know in terms of like mitigations of, okay, maybe I won't have a contract in a year. What if I have a break?
Yeah.
You start putting money aside. That's my number one advice to those that are starting out. Start saving your first year of your salary. Have that security in there, and just let things naturally evolve, and things will fall into place. But you can't hit the panic button right off the bat.
Right. 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 Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. So you made the switch and you got this 1 year contract. How's your first experience like working
It
as a
was,
consultant?
it was great. The organization that I first started was a Crown, actually, here in Regina. And, I really couldn't tell the difference between an employee and a consultant when I was there. The only difference was like you were getting paid from a different avenue, but treated with respect and part of the team.
Yeah.
And, it was just an opportunity for me to grow and to showcase my skills, which maybe I wouldn't have had that opportunity as an employee, because I was there to provide a service,
Yeah.
and they were looking to me for advice.
Right.
So, different shoes there.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like the word service because
Yeah,
I come across a lot of people who want to get into consulting just because they can make a lot of income, of course. But
absolutely.
service is something that I feel that differentiates, good and world-class consultants in my perspective. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the word service there, Brandy. So when did you come to realize, um, so you started working in, as a consultant, and
Mhm.
how did you figure out that there's a market for fixing things?
I think I kind of, so one is definitely my personality. I love to problem solve. I love getting people in a room,
Yeah,
working through issues. I feel that it brings your team closer together.
yeah,
As you gain more experience and knowledge in different industries, you can sit back and you can recognize where things are not going well on projects. I've seen
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And people, it kind of naturally happens that people start asking you questions or asking you to come in to provide your thoughts and opinions. And for me, it slowly morphed, and all of a sudden it was like, Brandy can take care of this, Brandy can get it done. And I think I'm on my fourth rescue right now. Because like I said, there's always something to be fixed, and it's something that energizes me. And I also like that I can come in, I can fix it, get it back on track, and then I
Hmm.
can go into the next contract again or the next engagement. So
Right.
I like that part of it.
Okay. 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 Fantastic. So the kind of problems you see that needs fixing, um, are they similar or are they different? What are your thoughts on that?
There's always similarities. What I find interesting going into organizations is everybody thinks they're different or unique. And to a certain
Yeah.
extent, yes, you're offering a different service, you have
Yeah.
different types of clients. But fundamentally, there's a lot of similarities when I go in and start, evaluating and figuring out, okay, where have things gone wrong? How do we get things back on track?
Right.
Um, I would say probably like the common themes is one, leadership.
Okay.
You need someone to steer the boat. Like you need someone to give that direction of where you're going and to find that finish line. And I find that's probably the number one issue, closely followed by there's no roadmap. How are you going to get there? How
Yeah.
are people able to do their jobs if they don't know what they're supposed to accomplish?
Yes.
So those are, I would say, tied close for first place.
Right. Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. So, in fact, I was actually I actually pulled out a report online as well, and some of the common trends that I have seen from my experience, and uh, this report, I think, just beautifully summarizes all the kind of issues that we fix in IT initiatives. So the report calls out greater need for transformation, especially now after what happened 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Right, there's a greater need for transformation in organizations. Depending on whether it's at a enterprise level, people level, process level, or even a system or technology level. It seems to be a greater need for all organizations to go through some kind of a transformation in them. And there's emergence of remote working culture that
Yes.
organizations are currently going through, right? So this means that people are going to have to adapt to a different mindset of working, and employers have to adapt to a different mindset as well. So there's a lot of culture shift happening within these organizations. And of course, because of remote working culture, there's going to be greater need for security, right? Especially
Mhm.
information security, data sharing, information being available to people who are working remote and whatnot. And of course, customers are getting very demanding
Yep.
as well. And they expect faster, quicker, better service from organizations as well. And I think the last one is pretty interesting. So this report calls out unskilled workforce as one of the other issue that most organizations are currently facing. Um, and I kind of agree with that, but I wanted to uh, ask you what your thoughts are. So do you come across unskilled workforce in any of the initiatives you work on?
Yeah, and when we speak of unskilled, it might be someone who is new coming into the position. They're
Yeah,
just starting out from that aspect.
yeah,
And yeah, I've come across, resources who are not fulfilling their job. They're just not meeting those requirements.
right.
Yeah, that one's, I'm not gonna lie, it's a tough one because when you have such a competitive environment right now,
Yeah,
and to get a hold of those qualified resources that are in high demand,
yeah,
it's tough. There's a lot of challenges.
yeah,
And so, I've experienced where, warm body, empty seat, but that doesn't address the issues. It's not going to help.
right.
It causes more issues down the road, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and this report also goes on to say that majority of the issues are mostly related to leadership, like you said, and also commonly associated with people in the organizations. And I kind of believe that as well, because that's
Mhm.
what happens, right? So when you have systems in place, technology in place, you have processes in place, but people have to be able to execute the systems the
Yes,
processes and all of that. And so I feel it's important for organizations to train and educate their people, and to to provide all kinds of opportunities for them to level up in their skills as well. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think
cool.
the question is, if you have people who are interested,
Yeah,
how do you get them trained? How do you get them in there? Through job shadowing, knowledge transfer. How do you get into that avenue
yeah,
to set your path? Which I think
yeah,
is probably challenging as well, because some people are like, we have to go, and they don't
yeah,
have time for that. And it's so important, but I understand, like, with the client, and there's money and time, like, you just have to get things done. But yeah, there's definitely an issue there that needs to be addressed.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that as well. Cool. So, what do you look for when you go into an organization, to fix an initiative or a problem?
Um, I, for me, sometimes the bigger the problem, the more excited I'm or more invested I am.
Yeah,
I ask a lot of questions. As a consultant, I still go through. I actually did last year. I did like a full interview. There was like 5 people on the panel. They brought me in, but when you get the opportunity, I'm asking questions right back, right? Like, there are things that I need to understand before I enter into the engagement. I need that background information, and I just ask for transparency, because if I can't find out what the issues are, I can't help.
yeah,
So it's kind of like a two-way interview, and it's like, we're interviewing you, but I'm also asking questions back. So
yeah.
always great dialogue. And people are always, it's a big step for people to ask for help, and for them to do that, I welcome it. And yeah, really have great conversations and get into the depth of it for sure.
Right, right. Yeah. So, so how does it feel to be like in the problem all the time, right? So especially when somebody like yourself who's specializing in fixing things, you're going to be in problem or within problem all the time. So how do you keep yourself going? Like yeah,
Great question.
yeah,
Yeah, the word issue comes up every day. That's just the nature of it. It's about, so in terms of dealing with the issue, it's, asking the right questions and having the right people in the room. For me, and to be honest, sometimes it does get heavy. I'm not going to lie, but you have to personally, I said across focus time to get things done in the work front or on the personal side. I have to create boundaries. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you have to say no. Saying yes doesn't mean it's going to help things. So
yeah,
setting those boundaries, and having great colleagues and friends as sounding boards that, hey, I've got this issue. Can we hop on a call? Which I
yeah.
just did a half hour before. It's amazing what, as I call it, the meeting of the minds come
Right.
and coming to resolution. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's no tricks to the trade. You got to keep balance between, work and personal life, and you have to take out time for yourself,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like for each individual. And know when to take a step back sometimes, and just like take a moment. I would say is probably one of my biggest advice for those out there.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely makes sense. So, most people talk to me and talk to us, in our school. They talk about work-life balance, and they're often concerned about, hey, consulting is going to be very heavy for me, and there's going to be very little work-life balance and so on. So,
Mm.
how do you feel, being in the industry and consulting for so long? Like, what does work-life balance look like to you?
There are times that you have to put in the time.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the business. And then there's times when you can step back and focus more on the personal side of things and the family. I would say, because you're entering and exiting contracts, you can plan the pace of that as
Right.
well. Yeah, it took me a while. I'm not going to lie. It took me a number of years to find the balance.
Yeah.
COVID helped. It really did. working remotely. I just found that I had more time in my day. I wasn't always rushed, and by Friday I was exhausted. So
Yeah.
for me, part of it was a blessing because now I have found my balance. And going forward, I know engagements, like I'm never going to be working on site full time. It's going to be a hard no for me.
Yeah.
But you have to go through some of the pains to understand where you want to go for sure.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that we teach in our school is, rather than looking at work-life balance, I personally feel that work-life balance doesn't exist for some reason because I've always tried to integrate what I do with my personal life. So there's no
Mhm.
separate boundary between my work and my personal life, right? So one of the things that we teach people to do is to integrate their work, what they do for a living to earn income and their personal life together. So they don't feel, the need to, yes, you got to take off, as from time to
Yes,
time, but they don't feel the need to balance both, is what I was getting at. So I think that's very
absolutely.
important. And that's one of the things that we teach at our school as well. So do you currently have a team of consultants, Brandy, or are you just going out on your own?
So I have my own, I'll call it boutique consultant. It is on my own.
Yeah.
Working in different clients, I've had the privilege of working with some great people,
Yeah.
yourself. You and I have come in and we fixed things. So really great to have a network that you can call upon and say, hey, like I've got this engagement. Are you interested? Can you come in and help?
Yeah.
Because, and I'll taking a step back, having like, for example, you and I've worked together, Sabrish, and doing some engagements, you can come in and do your thing, and I don't have to watch
Yeah.
over. Like you're independent, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
We meet, we discuss, and that defines us when we're providing that service and being professional that we
Yeah.
can come in and do that. So I don't think I would ever go and branch out and have a consulting firm with a
Okay.
number of individuals, under me. But
Yeah.
what I would love to do is like form like the task team, a
Okay.
fixer, like, parachute in, fix
Yeah.
things, parachute out. That would be something that would be my next step for sure.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. So uh you're focusing more on creating that task force who could go in and help organizations fix problems that they need to, and then they fix it, and then they're off to another organization and so on. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
definitely something that I'm working towards as well. So yeah, and having that network and that connections of consultants with you, I think is definitely going to help, for sure. um,
Agreed.
yeah. Yeah. So you're successful, right? Already, you've been in the industry a long time. You're great at fixing problems. You're an awesome consultant, and I
Oh,
see
thank
that you're
you.
doing your MBA and you're pursuing higher education and all of that. So I just wonder, one, where do you find the time? Two, why do you still keep learning, right? Because this is one of the questions that I always get. Because I'm big on learning as well. I love to learn every day. Uh, and I've got about 30 credentials in IT. Plus, I've got a lot of other things that I learn as
Mhm.
well. So people ask me this question all the time, especially for people who are looking to start their consulting careers. Why does somebody have to learn, you know, in spite of being successful? Like, what are your thoughts on that, Randy?
So I love to learn. I'm not a person, and you know me well. I can't sit still,
Yeah.
and I really do need to be exercising my brain all the time. I'm not a person who can sit on the couch. I would never last through 30 minutes of a TV show because I just like my brain's constantly turning.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I will never, no matter what age or where I'm in my career, I'm always going to be looking for something new, something to learn, something different. And that's twofold. Like being a consultant and going into an organization and you're learning a brand new industry and you're learning the organization and the culture and the politics. I love it because it's something different every time.
Yeah.
And if I didn't want that, maybe I would have rather been an employee where maybe there's not as much change and it's more comforting, more comfortable for me.
Hmm.
So on the MBA front, I've always wanted to do it. And, before COVID, it was too busy and I just didn't have time. And then COVID came and I'm like, sign me up. I need to use my brain here. Like, I got to keep busy.
Yeah.
So I did it more personally for me than anything. It's something that I want to do and accomplish. So what I'll do next, I've got a list of things. It's just, yeah, like finding time and what my priorities are. And I will need to take a bit of a break after this, and I recognize that. And then I'll be on to the next thing.
Yeah. So just to summarize for people who are listening, so you said you would prioritize learning because that's something that will help you to maybe get better engagements or
Mhm.
better consulting gigs and so on. And also, learning is something that you do um, just so. I lost my train of thought there. Uh, so
I think it was
yeah,
along the lines of like learning with like your new engagements and
yeah,
the change that comes with it.
right, right, yeah, yeah. So I think I definitely agree with that, and in fact, I would recommend like people who are looking to start their own consulting practice to adopt continuous learning as one of their um, values. I would even call that uh, because without everything is going to be different. Every client is going to be different. Every initiative is going to be different. Everything you
Mhm.
do with these initiatives is going to be different. So it's important for you to one stay up to date with the constantly changing industry. Two is to understand what's going on and try to learn more about the organization that you're working in and the client you're serving. I think it's very essential as well.
It is.
Nice. Good, good, good. So, what what do you think about the automations, AI? So there's talks about all that going, and people usually ask me, "Hey, am I going to get replaced by automations and AI?" And one piece of advice I always give them is if you're not going to get up, if you're not going to get skilled or upskill yourself or learn, you're eventually going to be replaced by AI and tech. You know, so what are your thoughts on automations these days?
Oh, we're going into the technical talk. There's benefits. I can see where organizations are going in that direction. There's definitely cost savings.
Yeah,
But, I think you hit the nail on the head around resourcing. Am I going to be replaced by technology or what does that look like? I don't believe there's ever going to be a shortage of a role to be filled. But again, if you're not looking to advance and you're sitting, in a comfort zone, yeah, you could have impacts. Like there could be changes coming your way.
yeah,
But yeah, you just got to go out there and find the field that you want to, explore and get into further detail. And like once you pull that thread, there's just so much out there. It's just, taking that first step. So on the automation front, Sabrish, I'm not going to lie, I kind of stepped away from some of the technical from the past month or year or two, but it's not going anywhere.
yeah,
You need to embrace it.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And one of the other things I often come across is organizations assuming automations as the silver bullet, right? So they
Mm,
always think, oh, I'm going to put an automation in and it's going to fix things in my organization. And one thing I constantly advise, my clients is, uh, yes, you can put in automations, but you got to help your people to, cope with those automations, right? Because again, it's the people who execute the automations and the systems in the organization. So it's very important for companies to put in automations, yes, but
yes,
also focus on upskilling their people,
for
in
sure.
general.
And technology is always changing. right? There's
Yeah.
going to be something more that's going to come, right? Like it's never stagnant. There's always going to be something. So yeah, it's up to that individual how they want to proceed and
Yeah.
what interests them. There's so many different facets to IT that there's no it's just finding the right fit for the individual.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, how is your um, how is your engagement like? Like, do you often look for longer term engagements, or do you also kind of take up like shorter term engagements and so on?
Yeah, I've done good question. My first, so we were talking about that 1 year contract when I first signed as a consultant,
Yeah.
ended up being 8 years. I don't
Wow.
recommend working somewhere for 8 years.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I had a great, it was a great engagement, met great people, lifelong friends for sure.
Yeah.
But for me to grow, I had to step out because I was getting very comfortable
Yeah.
and I needed to make that change. So since then, that's going to be coming up 3 years. I'm on I'm going to count here, my third engagement already. Um, and I love it because I'm meeting new people. I can take what I've learned in the past,
Mhm.
apply it. I'm learning as I go. And honestly, for me, like the number one is just meeting the people and working with such great teams. It's just something that I truly enjoy. I love it.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna say everything's always roses.
Yeah.
Um, when you're switching, you're leaving, you're wrapping up one contract and you're going into another. It's like your day one of school. And I
Yeah.
remember sitting back on the last one going, okay, how many more can I do of these? When you hop in, and it's not like you get 3 or 6 months to go, okay, now we're going to get you wrapped up. You have to hit the ground running, right? So learning a new organization and the people
Yeah.
and the culture, that is where you spend a lot of effort, right? Because you have to get up to speed and ask the right questions. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a pendulum there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, every day is going to be a new learning, obviously, um, as well. So, yeah. And being at a client organization for 8 years, I can imagine the value that you would have brought because for them to be able to afford a consultant, you know, to keep them on for
Yes,
about 8 years, I think that's a big thing, and not everybody um, is retained in my perspective. And I've been with one of the clients for about 6 years, close to as well. I had an opportunity to work with them, and again, it's very difficult for everyone to be able to do that unless they
mhm,
provide a lot of value and the value is recognized by the client. So I can definitely see the kind of value that you bring to the marketplace and the clients you serve and so on. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, like when you're going in and fixing, you can actually demonstrate that return of investment.
yeah,
Like I can demonstrate going back, going, okay, like you've spent X amount of dollars, you've spent this much time, and this is where you're at.
yeah,
And I can get you here and I can demonstrate that progress. That speaks volumes, right? And yeah, there is a cost to bringing in a consultant for
yeah,
sure. But if you're saving them money and they see progress and they're getting things done,
yeah,
then it's not relevant anymore, right?
yeah,
You're providing that service.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah. Perfect. So
yeah.
service again, it comes up. So
Mhm.
those who are watching, um, consulting is just not about making money. Again, this is all about the client you serve, and as long as you're committed to serve the client, you're always going to have opportunities. And people who think that consulting is risky, um, it's risky because you're focused on what you get versus what you can give. So I believe that
Absolutely.
doing more will get you more opportunities in the marketplace. So
Couldn't have said
always,
it better. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's good. And you've been consulting for how many years, Sabrish?
for about 22 years now. And
22 years?
yeah, it's been a long journey as well. And I messed up big time when I started. So again, I worked I worked in a consulting company, and again, I was a full time, and I shifted into my consulting career, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned the hard way, right? And that I think
Okay.
what has given me a lot of wisdom while I work with different clients. Um, for me, my journey, yes, I started as a full-time consultant, and I was working for a long time, through the company that I was with. It's one of the big fours, obviously, and I was able to consult for a lot of clients through them. And I happened to come to Canada on a consulting assignment, and that's how I got here. Consulting again gave me an opportunity to literally transition from one part of the world to another part. And I was able to deliver my services here. The clients liked me, they kept me here, and that's how I settled in Canada. So
Nice.
again, this goes to show that if you're willing to, serve, if you're
Mhm.
committed to serving clients, all sorts of opportunities are going to open up. Uh,
For sure. Yeah. And, I will say we were chatting about COVID before. I really feel that that has opened up opportunity now
yes.
because people had no choice, right? That change happened like that, and we were all working from home. And all of a sudden now, like, this past year, I've talked to clients in Europe, across Canada. My
Hmm.
current engagement, I have vendor, North America and India, where it wasn't there before. It wasn't even considered. It was like, you must be on site, I must see you. And
Yes.
now it's been proven out that I think that just opened up, a lot more opportunity. And yeah, it needs to be embraced.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, given a choice, I know you answered this already. So, given a choice, would you consider working from home forever, or do you think once in a while you would like to go on site as well?
Yeah, for the most part, I have been working remotely. I do go into the office once in a while, maybe not as much as I should lately. The calendar's been a little full, but it is really, I'm a people person, and it's good to see people and, you know, having a coffee or just standing in somebody's office. It took a little get used to again because, I'm here, right? And there's nobody else to talk to, which I
Yeah,
find that's one of the downfalls where in previous engagements, I'd flip the chair around and, a colleague would be sitting there and we'd be bouncing ideas and it happened naturally.
yeah,
Um, I do find sometimes that I'll try to figure things out myself because I feel like I'm bugging people.
yeah,
But getting better at, hey, everybody's online, reach out, right? All they can do is say, no, I'm busy. So for that standpoint. So yeah, in the
yeah,
future, I'm making a move. I'm going out west and looking forward to what opportunities bring out there. And I'm okay if I have to go on site maybe once or twice a week.
yeah,
I'm okay with that too, but I will never go back full time.
yeah.
So yeah,
That's true.
it's
That's
nice to
true.
have that choice.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And so I'm assuming that you would also want to be consulting for the rest of your career. Is that right?
Yeah, I've thought about going back to being an employee, and I'm
Yeah,
not sure. Sometimes people reach out and they're asking if you're interested, and you kind of kick the tires, and you go through the pros and cons. But why change something if I'm happy? There's nothing like I love what I'm doing.
yes,
Why change it, right? This is my path. I'm embracing it.
yeah,
I'm proud of what I've accomplished and how far I've come and what I've learned.
yeah,
And yeah, this is my path and I'm going to stick on it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what else it's going to bring.
yeah. Fantastic, fantastic. So, uh, I get one of these other questions as well most of the time. So, for consultants who are, or maybe for somebody who's considering to move into consulting, do you recommend them to go incorporated, or do you, advise them to maybe start off without a corporation, and then eventually, as they get more income coming in, they get incorporated?
Well, and it depends, everybody has their different situations in terms of getting things set up. So, you can be a consultant and sub through different organizations, like through different vendors. You can go on your own.
Yeah,
My advice would be you should sit down with your financial planner and your accountant
yeah,
to understand what incorporated means and what you would need to do to fulfill that. Here in Canada with CRA, I'm incorporated. It was a decision I made early on,
Yes.
and yeah, it really depends on your situation. I would say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I highly encourage that conversation, because if you're going incorporated and you're going out on your own, like there's a lot of different things that you need to consider around taxes.
Definitely.
You no longer have a pension plan, so what does that look like? How do you put money aside for that? Like you do need to lean on those sources to set yourself up for success from the business standpoint of things.
Right. Right. So you're actually starting to learn how to run a business, right? Literally.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the
Just
things I liked
go ahead,
about
sorry.
this. Yeah, you can go ahead, Randy. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I sat in at a tax presentation last Tuesday night for 2 hours, taxes
Yeah.
for business, because you do
Yeah.
need to stay up on the trends. Things are constantly changing in terms of government and the tax benefits and so forth. So yeah, like there's quite a few different facets to it for sure. Sorry, Sabrish, I cut you off there.
Yeah. No. 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 Yeah. I think you're definitely right, because I didn't realize all of this when I started back in the days, and when I decided to incorporate, I didn't realize that I was actually setting up a business, right? I just thought this is
Mhm.
just one thing that I do to bring in income, but there's so much I had to learn. Uh, and that has helped me to eventually incorporate, a couple of businesses here
Mhm.
as well. So,
Yeah,
but
find a great. You've got to find a good accountant. That's key.
yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. So I want to see if there's any questions
Yeah.
chat here, and maybe we could take on some questions here. So there's one here from Fakwa. Fakwa is one of our students in our
Awesome.
school. As an IT consultant, when do you marry your ability to empathize with your client on one hand and saying no to the same client on the other hand without hurting the relationship? That's a great
Excellent
question.
question. Very
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak
So,
first, Rish?
yeah. So I think it is. It is going to be tricky. I will agree with that. But I think it is all about how much you know your client, right, and how much of a relationship you have already built. Because for me, when I go into engagements, my primary focus is to, yes, to solve the problem, to help the client with the initiatives, but I'm also building relationships, because I think that relationships is what is going to help you to maneuver these situations better. So when I come across these situations, yes, I have a good relationship that I can rely on, that'll help me to, kind of maneuver these sticky situations as I encounter them. So I think that's my response. Relationship, I think, is the key. And what
Yeah,
do you think?
very, yeah. Yeah, this question, I saw it pop up before and it caught my attention.
Yeah,
My number one advice is to be transparent.
yeah,
Um, you have to bring out the truth. You can't dance around it or cover things up.
yeah,
That's not going to be a good situation in the long run. I will share, earlier on this year, I went through some tough conversations with my client after I completed my evaluation of where things are at and where we needed to go. It
yeah,
wasn't good news, but I can emphasize, I started out with my discussion going, I've had these conversations before, I've seen this before, and I understand that you're frustrated on, where we're at this moment, and I can't change the past because I
yes,
can't, but I can help you change the path going forward, and I can demonstrate how I'm going to do that.
yes,
And sometimes you just listen because they're not angry or upset. Sorry, maybe I should use angry, but frustrated with you.
yeah,
It's the information and what has, how things came to be. So you listen and, you have those conversations, and, that's where you emphasize on things, and then you start talking about, okay, how are we going to move this forward and get them invested, and Having those really good, strong conversations makes a world of difference. But for sure, number one, be transparent.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I also like to ask three questions, right? Three questions I often ask clients is what happened, what needs to
Mhm.
happen, how can we make it right? I think those three questions will also help us establish, relationship, empathize with the client, of course, and then help them maneuver that situation, and to come out on the other side successful.
You bet.
Because eventually it's a partnership. I believe that consulting is a partnership. It's a two-way partnership where
It is.
you're in provide a service to help the client to get from point A to point B, and the client is there investing in you so you can help them to go where they want to go. So
Yeah. You develop a really very strong relationship with your clients. Sharing of information and sharing ideas, and it gives a sense of it does give them a sense of peace, going, hey, I've seen this before. This is what I experienced here, and this is what we did. And
yeah,
that's where you go back and say, not everybody, organizations look different on the outside, but inside they're all going through the exact same things. They may look a little different,
right.
but they're experiencing the exact same.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yes. So in other words, then do you say that for consultant, definitely like the soft skills is much more important than your hard skills? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on?
absolutely. Excellent question, Sabrish. What I've seen in the past is, you know, consultant comes in, they've got their PMP, they've got these credentials,
Yes.
and it's by the book, but the experience and having those soft skills in terms of
Yeah.
having those difficult conversations that we just covered, and building relationships and managing your stakeholders. And as much as I'm a consultant, I spend a lot of time with my team, and sometimes I'm a sounding board and I'm coaching, and
Yeah.
it's just more than just coming in with some credentials and saying, I'm going to fix this and you're good to go.
Exactly.
People are like 90% of your involvement, and you need to invest in that and spend time.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Yeah. I think that's a great point there because most people who talk to us at our school, they always ask me this question: hey, what do I need to do so I can become a consultant? And people will start coming to me for advice and recommendations. And we often tell them, you start with your mindset first because you got to fix your mindset to
Mhm.
be able to be in a situation where you can help people, right? Serve people. Um, so I think that's one of the things that is definitely, a key as well. Um, yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. Let me just quickly see if there's any
Okay.
other questions. Um, there's Deepti. What steps you take to keep your contracts going to keep income generation consistent? That's the first question.
Okay.
So maybe we'll do we want to take that first question first, Brandy?
Sure. Let's go and then yeah, let's go with the first one and then we can hop into the latter.
Yeah. What steps do you take to keep your contracts going to keep income generation consistent? I think we kind of covered this earlier, but you want to go first, Brandy?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So around contract management, I spoke about, you got this first year and this 1 year contract. I needed a bit of a safety, blanket on that. And my focus that first year was, okay, I'm not sure how long this is going to last. I was very focused on saving enough money that would cover like my salary. So if I
Mhm.
did have a break in contracts, I wasn't, panicking that how am I going to pay for the bills?
Yeah.
If things are going well and you're doing an excellent job, and there was a comment in here about, being a consultant, and if you do a great job, the work continues. And I do truly believe that.
Yeah.
We are in a smaller center here in Regina. Word on the street, if you're great,
Yeah.
great things, and so forth. But I would really encourage, having conversations with your vendor about future opportunities. Don't wait until like the last 30 days of your contract. have those conversations early. I would say even like 6 months in advance, and start the conversation and planting the seed. I find LinkedIn also a really good source of like looking for different opportunities. You can open yourself to work, and you can set up filters, make connections through that way as well. And then
Mhm.
also with your colleagues. Sabrish and I may be having a conversation going, hey, Sabrish, did you hear, people are looking for this type of consultant, and word spreads, or we may know somebody. And yeah,
Yeah,
just with your connections itself, make a difference as well.
yeah,
Over
yeah.
to you, Sabrish.
Yeah, definitely agree with all of that as well. So I think relationships and network is the key, right? One way of building your network is to attend, seminars, networking events, getting to know consultants out there, and even potential organizations who are hiring consultants or looking for consultants. Like Brandy said, LinkedIn is definitely the place to go. Most people don't even have a LinkedIn profile these days. I think that's something that definitely need to consider if you need
Yes.
to be known in the market. That you're a consultant and people can come to you. That's where everything starts. So put yourself out there, be known to people that you are a consultant and you can help. Companies fix problems, and also being able to articulate what you specifically specialize in and what kind of problems you help those companies fix, I think will definitely help. So this is where, for an IT person, marketing, branding, all of that is going to help, right? So I think that's one of the other elements that
Yeah.
we all have to learn at some point in time, and especially now in this current scenario where everything is going digital, you have to be able uh, to put yourself out there, and you can even come on the show if you want, right? So yeah, you have to be able to do things that will get attention, of prospective clients in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do know, just for anybody who's looking, for contracts and stuff, comes up on my LinkedIn quite frequently that you can, there's people that provide a service to rate your profile and rate your resume, and making sure it's got the right wording and so forth. I have seen a few clients go through that, and it was well worth the money to invest.
Yeah, yeah. So the next question here is: do you recommend taking breaks between contracts? If no, why? Um, I think it's it's a great question, but I think it is also a personal preference. Brandy, do you want to take it, or should I go?
You go ahead and I'll follow up.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, I think it is a bit of personal preference. Again, what your situation is and how much of a financial commitment you have and how much you've saved up, and all of that is also some of the key considerations to decide if you want to take a break. For me, I used to take breaks at least 3 months in a year back in the days. So I used to work like 9 months, and I used to go, really hard for those 9 months. I used to do like a lot of work, uh, you know, make up for those 12 months, for the 3 months that I'm taking off, right? And I used to just work 9 months, and I was happy doing that for quite a bit of time. Uh, so I think taking breaks between contracts as well as taking vacations when you need it, because as a consultant you don't get paid if you're
Mhm.
not working as well. So that's something that people need to be aware as well. Um, it is up to you totally, and depending on what situation you're in. Um, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's a personal choice, but if you're starting out, I wouldn't say no if a contract came your way and said, "Oh, I'm taking a break." I
Yeah.
wouldn't advise on that. My experience the past couple of years is my contracts have actually overlapped,
Yeah.
where
Okay.
they're like, "Can we part time, so you could get started versus just waiting." So I've kind of done the opposite of what I was intending to do. But there could be times where I can, be in that right, situation where I can actually take a break if it's I'm not going to do it in the middle of winter in Saskatchewan. But it never worked. It seems for me, it hasn't worked out that, all of a sudden the contract ends, end of June and something pops up in September. So you kind of just go with the flow. And like Sabrish had, mentioned that you can adjust your hours, you can, take vacation understanding that you don't get paid, but you can, put in extra time, and you got to find what works for you. But yeah, the perfect mix, I haven't come across it yet.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think we spoke a lot uh,
Yeah.
today. Just looking at my notes here, I did have some questions. So, any word of advice, recommendations for, let's say, and maybe a full-time employee wanting to switch into consulting? Uh, what would be some of the advice and recommendations that you would provide?
So what I did, and for me, was just getting, we're lowering the risk.
Yeah,
About a year prior, I set up my business.
yeah,
I met with my lawyer, got everything set up,
yeah,
got the banking, and got like all that administrative work out of the way.
yeah,
I started looking for contracts while I was an employee. What I've recommended to a few folks who have reached out to me is you could take on something part-time to start. Still keep your
yeah,
full time, and maybe it's a part-time and it's like 20 hours a week or whatever, and you can make it work
yeah.
within your schedule to see if this is a good fit for you before you just jump in with both feet.
Right,
Um,
right,
that would be my biggest recommendation. And yeah, when you're comfortable, then start reaching out and securing that first full-time contract.
right. And how can they get ready for it? Like, do they have to have like credentials? Do they have to take some kind of a training, or what is your um, what would be your advice on that?
Good question. So when I started, I came out kind of like intermediate experience, just based on what I had for qualifications and my background.
Yeah,
You'll definitely want to have experience in your back pocket, and have those credentials in place
yeah,
to get started. And then as you grow, into your consulting field, the experience just comes in hand, right? But
right,
that's where I highly encourage you to look at, training opportunities and education. You can't just put that aside and say, "Oh, I'm a consultant and I'm not focused on that anymore." So,
right.
I wouldn't recommend it for somebody just out of university. I would get some experience underneath your belt first before you made that decision.
Right, right, and yeah. So I think this is probably a perfect time where I can talk about my school because
Yes.
um, I did realize that there was a need for this, and like I said, like I struggled when I made that switch, and I made a lot of mistakes that sometimes costed relationships, like mistakes that resulted in financial loss, for one of my clients as well, and all of that, right? So it was kind of risky, but I luckily got away with that, right? So I realized that a lot of people are looking to make this transition, and I formalized a kind of education that will help people to make that switch from full time into consulting roles in the IT industry, and I formalized by institutionalizing a school, and we're calling it the International Institute of IT and Consulting, and that they're one of the sponsors of the show as well. And through the school, we're actually providing with a lot of education, hand holding, and training, coaching, and all of that, along with community support to help people, to make that switch, from a full time into a consulting role. So, definitely for people who are watching, who are, wanting to make the switch, who don't know where to start, you can definitely reach out to us, and I will post some, links in the chat as well by the end of the show, and reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you about your goals and aspirations and see how we can set you up as a consultant.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I covered all my questions. And
Mhm.
did you did you have anything, Brandy, that you would like to bring up, or maybe anything that you want to say to people who are watching?
Yeah, I love consulting. It's definitely a fit for me. It
Yeah.
fits my personality, and as they
Yeah.
say, grass never grows underneath my feet.
Yeah.
But yeah, really take time to evaluate if it's the right fit for you. I highly
Yes.
recommend, reaching out to Sabrish and your colleagues and asking some really good questions and wonderabouts to solidify making that decision. It takes time to get established. In the first few years, you're going to be green at it, and you're going to have tons of learnings, as Sabrish had shared. And yeah, there's
Yeah.
tough times. I'm not going to lie, it's not all roses, but yeah, I just need to be committed. And I had a coach when I started to give me advice, and this is my sounding board. Lots of different things to consider for sure.
Yeah. 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 And do you still have mentors and coaches
I
you're
do.
working with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. Yeah. They bring
Yes.
um, perspective that because they're on the outside of things that you may not see.
Yeah.
When you're living in your world every day, sometimes blinders are on a little bit, and it's really good to take that step back from that wisdom.
Yeah.
So yes, I highly encourage it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So for people who are watching, if you want to know the secrets of how to be successful for 20 years in consulting, you have to watch this show because there's a lot of golden nuggets here. And Brandy, she's shared a lot of secrets on this show. And mentor and coach is definitely someone you have to have, or you have to find at some point in time, because they are the people who can help you to get ahead and keep you going in the consulting journey. For sure. So I think we're nearing the end of the show. I'm just going to see one last time if there's any other questions, Brandy. And I think we're good here for questions. Um, any last words?
This was great, Sabrish. You and I had chatted about doing this for a while. It's great just to sit back and have the conversation with your peers, coming from the same world. Yeah, I highly encourage people to reach out to Sabrish or myself. Sabrish will provide my contact information at the end of our session here. And yeah, a big thank you to Sabrish. This was great. I'm glad we did this. I was a little nervous. Wasn't sure what to expect, but a
Yeah.
great experience. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, I enjoyed as well. And this is the first time I'm bringing somebody I know. So this is going to be a special show for me as well. So yeah, thank you so much for being here, Brandy. And it was an honor. Great to know you as a person, as a consultant. So
Same.
wish you all the very best and all success,
Thank you.
and many, many more consulting gigs. And yeah, take care of yourself because you got to fix a lot of problems out there.
There's a lot of fixing to do, so I'm up for the challenge.
Yes.
Thank you, Sabrish.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for everyone watching, thanks again for watching the Six Figure Consultant Show. My name is Rishan, and I am the host and the founder of the International Institute of IT and Consulting as well. So, you have any questions about consulting, reach out to us. And till we meet next time, you all take care and stay safe.